What's going on, guys? Isaiah here from YuGiOh Gaming, and today me and Logan are going to go over a meta tier list for the May 22 Yu-Gi-Oh! TCG format. The format's got kind of shaken up a little bit by the new Therion cards that came out of DIFO. YCS Hartford is actually this weekend, so we're going to make this tier list and see how we stand up to how the results of YCS are. Let's go. Before we get into today's video, guys, I want to talk about Dank Ritual. Dank Ritual is a partner we have with Playmats. They have a new line of Playmats called Covenant. These playmats feel amazing. They're pretty close to the V1, and they feel great. The way cards slide across them feel great, and they look great. These are the only two designs they have at the moment, but they're definitely going to have more mats coming soon. Also, if you guys do decide you want to get one of these mats, I highly recommend it. Make sure you use code GUU10, that's GUU10 at checkout, and that'll get you 10% off. Again, guys, it's GUU, GUU10 for 10% off your purchase. Let's get right into the video. Alright, guys, so jumping right into our tier list, we're just going to hit it off with the best deck of the format, which is Despia. If you do not think this is the best deck of the format, you're just really behind. It's definitely, I wouldn't say it's tier 0 to the point where it's just unbeatable, but if you're not playing the deck, or you're not building your deck to beat this deck, then you're not going to do well in a big tournament.
Yeah, Despia just checks all the boxes. I think the only reason it's not just automatically tier 0 is because the deck doesn't create super oppressive boards. Like the boards are very good. It's just they don't lock you out of the extra deck or do something like alternate win condition or something like that. But the deck just checks all the boxes. It lets you draw a bunch of cards. It's super consistent, super high power. It's super good through hand traps. It's good going first and second. The deck is just very good at all aspects, and the deck's just super strong.
I do predict this deck to win YCS Hartford. I think it's going to be the most represented deck and the highest top cut represented deck, and it's probably going to win the event.
I agree. I mean, if you look, the deck's literally won every single major event since its release.
Yep. Alright, DDD, there's not a whole lot to talk about this. I feel like it's either tier 2 or rogue. The deck's not terrible, but no one really wants to take the time to learn this deck. And even if they do, the deck just loses to hand traps really bad. So a lot of people aren't playing a ton of hand traps right now, so the deck could possibly do well. I just don't think it does enough, especially with Despia and Super Poly.
Yeah, I don't think the deck can beat Super Poly.
Now, I know Madolche has an okay Despia matchup. How do you feel like it is in the meta?
I think the deck's rogue, but I think it has a naturally good Despia matchup. But the only problem is you're at the end of the day, you're still playing Madolche, right?
Yep.
Like, sure, if you get to execute your game plan, your deck has a really good matchup. But if they go first and set up a bunch of interruptions and you can't stop it, then you're not going to be able to get to the cards that are really good against the Despia cards.
Now, ABC, this is the ABC Therion. If you're just playing pure ABC or Brave ABC by itself right now, I don't think the deck is good. If you are playing ABC Therion, I think the deck is definitely better than it was. I don't think it's a road deck anymore. I don't know if it's 1.5 or 2. We'll have to see how it goes into the meta. I do feel like this is going to be a deck you're going to see at YCS Hartford, though.
I think it's definitely better than D. You might want to just drop D down to Rogue if you don't want to put ABC
Yeah.
in tier 2 or in tier 1.5. Because I
I
don't
really
think
like
it's
this
near
deck.
tier 1, but I think the deck can definitely top a tournament. And it's like the Therion cards are so good with the ABC cards, especially with Hanger every turn. So
Yep. If you open Hanger and Therion and you don't get interrupted, you're probably winning the game.
Yep.
Alright, and Doscaper is for Cyber's Eldritch, which probably the hardest hit deck on the ban list.
Yeah, this deck is just unplayable. Now, there might be a Cyberse deck with Heat Soul and stuff like that people might try, but since Anaconda got banned and the really good Link ones don't allow you to Scythe lock with Needle and stuff, there's just better options, I think, than the Cyberse package.
Now, Predaplants, I don't know a whole lot about the Predaplant deck, but I have seen a lot of people trying to pick it up. I do think it's going to be a surprise factor at YCS Hartford. I think the deck's really cool, and a lot of people are playing the Predaplant FTK.
Yeah, I don't know. I think if their room is full of decks that do not have hand traps, then the FTK is probably just going to run rampant. But you know, vice versa, if the deck's filled with hand traps, I think this deck's going to struggle a lot. Or if the metagam's filled with hand traps, I should say.
Now, Phantom I think they're a little stronger than they were because a lot of people aren't playing as many hand traps as they were, and this deck can still Scythe lock, sadly. the people that are playing this deck seem to be playing the Predator Plant package where you can search your Fusion Destiny.
I think the Phantom Knight cards are strong. There's like tons of way to play with them. Like you can either do like the Assault stuff, you could do the Predator Plant things, you can Scythe Lock, and you can just like actually just play like pure Phantom Knights with the Scythe Lock too, right? Because you can just Rusty and bring back Breaksword and pop your Scythe pretty easily. So I think the deck's pretty good, but I don't think it's like near tier 1.
Now, Sun Avalon is a deck a lot of people have been excited for. I played against it a couple times, and I mean, I could have just got lucky, but it didn't seem like it could play through any hand traps at all. Like, if you hand trap them correctly with anything, it just felt like they were just losing.
Yeah, I think this deck's probably about the same tier as like the ABC deck. Like, sure, if you get to execute your game plan, you're probably gonna win. But the problem is, like, that's not how Yu-Gi-Oh works a lot of the time. You draw your bricks, you get hand trapped, you get interrupted, and like, if that happens and people know how to play against your deck's just way worse.
Now, this is the Punk Therion deck. A lot of people have been picking up on this, and I think the deck is really strong, but I don't think it is relatively tier 1.
Yeah, I think it's probably we're tier 1.5. I think the deck's good, and I think that there might be like a way to like make the deck very good and make it close to Despia because the cards are very strong. The only problem is that the issue with the deck is sometimes you rely on your mills and you like all of your cards just minus. Like none of your cards actually give you advantage back, and that's a huge problem in like deck building. Um, so I think if someone can fix those problems, the deck could be really good. But right now, as it stands, I don't think it's tier 1.
Now, we got a lot of new Pendulum stuff. We got Monkey Board back. We got the new Link Monster. We got the new Performer Pals. I think the deck is really fun. I'm excited to play it, and I'm excited to see it being played. I think it's definitely going to squeeze. I think we could see one in the top cut of Hartford, especially with like the draw 5 combo with the Performer Pals. But I don't think it does enough to compete as a tier 1 against Despia.
I think one thing that's strong about this deck against Despia is Baguska. I think Baguska is very strong against multiple decks in this list. And this deck can pump that card out like crazy. And also, like, Pendulum summoning the mechanic is actually just broken. And I could definitely see someone coming up with something that's very good.
One big problem with Pendulum in this format is everybody is siding the barrier and anti-spell, which sadly just destroyed Pendulum as well.
Yeah, that's true.
Dragon Link, I want this deck to be really good, and I think this deck is insane. The only problem with it is you do your whole board and your opponents just set Albaz, fuse your board away. So I think if Despia wasn't a thing, Super Poly wasn't a thing, I think this deck would be really high up on the list.
I'm gonna be honest, I think this deck is rogue. Like, I would be way more scared of playing against ABC at this point than Dragon Link. And
Yeah.
that's just sad to say. Like, I feel like Dragon Link's all their good cards are hit, like, except like Chaos Base. And, like, sure, you can, like, literally, I played against Dragon Link in this most recent regional that I got top 8 in. And he opened, like, the stones. Like, he opened, like, Chaos Base and a bunch of other stuff. And he literally just ended on 3 interruptions. Like, your whole board just gets super polyed away. That you just set up Fallen Albaz, fuse your board away, whatever. It's just not reliable. Like if like the format is just like 30 or 40% Despia.
And then Alistar deck, I think this is just, like, at this point, if you're playing the Alistar deck, I feel like you're just playing a worse version of Branded or Despia. I mean, yeah, you're making a Mecha Bub, but your board's probably just going to get super polyed away anyway.
The deck's just getting power crept at this point. Like a
Yeah.
mecha by every turn is just not strong enough when your opponent can do Mirror Jade, Chimera, Mirror Jade every single turn. Like look at the power difference between those two things.
Now, Eldritch, I hate Eldritch, and I hate playing against Eldritch, but I think this is one of the best decks in the format. It's either tier 1 or right at the top of tier 1.5. This is a deck where you can build your deck with floodgates to beat the best decks, and that's why I think it's really strong.
I honestly think it's probably tier 1. I think
Yeah.
it has good matchups. Almost it's weird because like it doesn't have a very good matchup against Despia, but it's not a bad matchup either. It's like
Yeah.
50-50. But like it does have just some auto win matchups in the format. Like just straight up, like if it plays against those decks and it flips a floodgate, it wins. And that's really strong going into a 10 to 12 round tournament, just having 2 or 3 free wins.
Now, how do you feel about Flunder? I feel like this deck has started to fall off a little bit, and I mean the deck is still really good. I feel like if you set a barrier statue most of the time in game one, you just win if you're going first. And there's not a whole lot of super poly targets for it.
I actually think this deck's really strong. I think it takes a good pilot, and I think that especially if a lot of people are playing the Therion cards, because this deck actually like all those Therion decks just can't beat a D shifter. So like let's say you have a couple free wins there. You have your barrier statue lock, which is really good game one against Despia. You just got to figure out how to be like Necro World Banshee, which is a huge problem. But if people start taking that out of their side decks, I think the deck gets a lot more powerful, which I think people will. I think it's borderline tier 1. I think it's tier 1.5 probably. But I definitely think it's one of the better decks of the format. And if you chose this for Hartford, I wouldn't be surprised.
Yep, I can agree with you. The deck has its flaws, but it's easier to play, and it's like you're not gonna make as many mistakes in this deck as you would in high combo decks. And you're just like you said, the barrier statue and Impin is really good.
Mega Rise is broken.
Yeah, Necrons is insane. Now Sword Soul is probably the best deck in my opinion, other than Despia. It's probably the deck with the best Despia matchup, but it's like it just doesn't compete. Like it doesn't sit on the same level as Despia.
It just has a ceiling. Like
Yeah,
it, it just it gets hurt by just getting like it has like a ceiling that it can only do so much in a turn. Where, like if you look at like Despia, they can do like 4, 5, 6 things in a turn. Where your Sword Soul deck can only do like 3 things max.
yep,
And when you're playing through like against like Eldritch, for example, like that's really hard. If you're playing against like a hand trap deck, that's super hard. And if you're going second against the Despia board when they end with like 6 interruptions, you can't break it. It's just
yeah,
without like hand trapping them or drawing draw put or something. It's just
yeah.
not gonna happen.
You're not beating them unless you open a perfect hand. Like it's just how it is. Now your starting board's really good. Like if a Despia player just opens like an average hand, you're probably going to win that game. But you're not going to break their boards going second unless you open a god hand. And if they do open any interruptions or super poly, etc., you're probably going to lose.
The problem with Sword Soul is that everyone is playing Patchwork at this point in Despia, and the fact that they make Chimera where it cannot be targeted, and it
Yep.
forces you to have to go into the new level 10 to be able to banish the poly so it can be targeted is just too much.
Yep. We're not going to do anything but laugh at prank kids. And then Plunder Patrol, it's probably a rogue deck.
Yeah, I don't think it's good either.
The Red Rose decks have kind of started to fall off. I think at this point, they're probably tier 2 or rogue. Um, like this is like the base decks. I think they've just really fallen off with Red Rose going to 1 and with Anaconda being gone.
It wouldn't surprise me if someone just replaced the Red Rose engines with the Punk engine, just because I think the Punk engine is just superior at this point.
Yeah.
I could see a world where you could play both, where you could just like Hulk out, like use the Punk stuff to climb in a Hulk out the Red Rose, and then combo from there. But it would definitely be like a synchro based deck. You're not going to be playing sad where you're just trying to end on Anaconda like DP. You can't do that anymore. Um, so yeah, I do think. I mean, maybe there's a version that can Scythe Lock and put up interruptions and Scythe Lock. Wouldn't surprise me. I'm sure that there's combos where you can do that. Because Havoc is really easy to be made with the punk stuff. So it'd be cool if someone went to that direction and tried to explore it. There might be something there, but as of right now, I haven't seen anything that impresses me.
How do you feel about the Agent deck people have been playing?
I think it's rogue, but it's really cool. It
Yeah.
reminds me a lot of Deity. Like people don't know what the cards do, so they fuck up a lot and just like misplay a ton.
And Christie is a good
Um,
card.
and Christie is crazy, yeah. But like I'm sure when like I would assume they just lose their droplet. I haven't actually really played against the deck. I've just seen a few people, like few games that people's play with it. So I don't know like all the like intricacies and stuff. But the deck seems cool.
Now, Brigade sadly took a big hit on the ban list, and they, with Anaconda gone, they just kind of fall back because they can't, like, they play the branded stuff still, but they just can't turbo it out as fast. So I think the deck is still going to be meta relevant. Like, you're going to see people playing it, but I don't think it's going to be as strong as it was. So it's probably, I would say it's tier 2.
I honestly think it's Rogue at this point. Like, I think it's about as strong as Dragon Link. And like, honestly, Dragon Link's probably just better. So like, if you look at it like that, like it's just, you know.
Yeah, now it's just kind of old faithful Brigade, your charade stuff, and it gets hit hard by hand traps.
Yep.
I've seen a lot of people start picking up Dynamorphia over the past weekend at the regionals. How do you feel about this deck?
There was actually at the regional that I was in, there was a guy that was playing Dynamorphia in the top 8. He was playing Dynamorphia branded, which, you know, there's obviously like you're still playing, you know, branded deck, but you know, he did get top 8 with the deck, so that's definitely something cool and something interesting to look into.
I would probably still say Dynamorphia itself is probably still Rogue, though.
Yep. The
Especially
new
with
cards are really good though.
the card's really good. And my big thing is with it is most of these decks take a long time to play, and if you get in top at all, you just kind of lose.
Yeah, I agree. I agree with that completely. Especially if people don't know your cards, which a lot of people don't know the
Yeah.
Dynamorphia cards. Like, they're gonna read your cards, it's gonna take more time.
Yep. 10 minutes of your round is going to be reading, so you have to play really fast and hope your opponent knows what they're doing. Now, Ignister, I have seen a lot of people start picking this back up. I really think it's going to be a decent contender. A lot of people aren't playing outs to the big guy. And if they get on the board, you kind of just win.
I think Ignister is the best, probably the best Cyburst deck that can abuse Heat Soul, as well as like it just has free auto wins, and the cards are just really good into like interruptions. Like, believe it or not, like since like the only way that Despia can out the field spell is by popping it with Chimera, and they can just replay it is like really strong. That Mirror J can't banish it, and they can just keep putting guys on the board, and then eventually just access code you. The only problem with Ignister, I realized I played one at a regional recently, or I played against one at a regional, and I just snowed his first monster face down, and he just lost because he just could not get rid of it.
That's rough.
So that is a problem, but not that big of a deal.
And then we have Heroes, everybody's favorite. Hero Lives is back, but the deck is still probably Rogue.
Yeah, it's probably more of an engine than a real deck. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? Like Hero Lives to go into like an Assault Day combo or something, but yeah, I agree. It's just Rogue at this point.
Now, a lot of people have been excited about Last Stage coming back. The two. I played against Trickstar this past weekend at a regional, and he said that his deck was awful. There's some people have been playing the Trickstar branded deck with ending on double Masquerade, double Licorice, but you can't do that consistently, even though it's kind of terrifying to pay 5,000 to activate anything. But I just don't think the deck does enough. Maybe tier 2. It's probably more of a rogue deck though.
Yeah, I think it's a Rogue deck. It's just Trickstars just are just
Outdated.
far just yeah, it's just not a good deck anymore.
Now, how do you feel about Striker? A lot of people say Striker has a good Despia matchup. I don't really see it. I mean, Mystic Mine is very good into the deck. Striker with Therions, maybe. But I also haven't even seen anyone play that over the past weekend.
I think it'll give it time. People will. I think the deck's really strong. Um, Probably in my opinion, like tier 2. I want to put it in tier 1.5, obviously, or tier 2, or yeah, I want to put it in tier 1.5, but it's probably tier 2.
Yeah. I think at the moment it's probably tier 2, and it could probably climb up once people learn
Yeah,
how to play the deck into the format.
as long as people like don't play Brandon Lost against you, you have a really good Destiny matchup.
Yeah, because it just craps on Widowmaker for everything in general. And then we have Salomon Great. Now, there's a lot of people playing this right now, and with 3 Circle, I don't really think the deck changes that much, but I think the deck's probably tier 2. You can just build your deck to play against the format, which is really good. A lot of people have been playing like Rivalry in this deck, even though this deck just really loses the Sword Soul, I've noticed.
Yeah, I honestly don't think it's good at all. Um, like people are like, "Oh, we have 3 circle now." It's like, "Okay, bro, you have like 12 copies of Gazelle. You had 9. I don't think it's gonna change that much." Like, I'm not trying to be an asshole here, but like it's just Salad just struggles a lot with breaking boards without having like hand traps and stuff.
Yep.
And I couldn't imagine playing that deck like around like in this format. All right, so now we're gonna like organize and clean this up a little bit, and maybe talk about stuff that we kind of think maybe some of these decks are a little bit like lower, a little bit higher, vice versa. Um, I think all the tier like the tier point 5 and the tier 1 decks are all good. There might be a Punk deck that is tier 1. I think Punk is definitely at the top of tier 1.5. I just maybe it hasn't been discovered yet, and obviously the Predator Plant deck made it surprise us and jump up to tier 1. So Flunderies is probably at the bottom of tier 1.5, but I do think the deck's good. In tier 2, I think we can probably drop the Red Rose decks into Rogue. Um, unless someone creates a new deck, I don't see those decks doing well, and I think Invoke can probably go into Rogue as well. Um, other than that, I think Salad's probably at the bottom of tier 2. Um, and then you have like I think Striker's better than PK. PK's probably about as good as Salad, maybe a little better. And I think Ignister's better than PK. And then Pendulums are probably better than Ignister. That's how I think I wouldn't arrange the Rogue. The Rogue's all the same.
The little shade up here has a good Despia matchup. The rest of it's just there.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, I think this format is a lot less diverse than the last one. As if you're not playing Despia, you're just behind. I'm glad to be out of the last format, but there was just so many different decks you could play last format with splashing engines in and everything. But this is going to be our tier list going into Hartford, so we'll see how Hartford stacks up against our tier list, and we'll definitely have a post YCS recap. So look forward to that. You have anything else to say?
If you notice difference from last format, the amount of Brave decks are way lower.
Yep.
Which is nice.
Yep. Like Brave didn't get hit at all, and I don't think it played like 2 Brave decks over the whole weekend for the last region I played in. So alright guys, so that is my and then Logan's tier list for the meta right now in the TCG of May 2022. YCS Hartford is this weekend, so hopefully our tier list stacks up to it. We do think Despia is going to be the most represented deck, and it's probably going to win. But who knows? We'll see how it goes. And obviously next week after the YCS, we'll have a recap. We have some dank deck lists coming up for you guys this weekend. Also, make sure you check out dankritual.com and use code GOO10 for 10% off your order. With that being said, we'll catch you guys in the next one. Peace.